Presenting today's webinar, Amaze or Amaze, What Komar Thinks About Deductions and Cash Application Automation, is Rebecca Castle, Director of Operation Compliance, AR Collection at Komar Distribution Services, and Elaine Nowak, Director of Product Management and Marketing at HighRadius. So without further ado, I am pleased to turn the program over to our first presenter, Elaine Nowak. Take it away, Elaine.
Thanks, Patricia. So today on our agenda, I'm going to be covering, myself and Rebecca will be covering these 5 areas. We'll be talking about, an AR manager, why receiving payments is not enough. I'll go a little bit more into the manual processes and why that's a big no in our new economy. Then I'll give you the 6-step plan to improve your deductions and cash application processes. Then Rebecca will tell us the Komar story, their digital transformation in their order to cash area. And then lastly, I will go over a little bit about HighRadius if we have time, and then of course your questions. So please go ahead and submit your questions as we go through today's presentation. So starting off with, for an AR manager, just getting a payment is not enough. And why is that? I think because today AR leaders are focused on improving cash flow. And this is especially true in COVID, right? In this particular time where collecting on as many past due invoices as possible has really become a focus. But more often than not, receiving payments is not enough. So let's look at a scenario that could impact customer experience and DSO negatively and could even delay the payment process. So after payment is made, by your customer, the suppliers have to react. And if the buyer has taken a deduction, obviously the supplier needs to validate that deduction and resolve it. And if there's no deduction, then the suppliers need to apply the cash that's been received and close out that open invoice. So in the case of where there's been a deduction, now the analyst has to research that deduction, needs to determine the validity by collecting information from external carriers, by collaborating with other team members. Maybe they have to reach out to the sales team. And then depending on the validity, they either have to resolve the deduction or request more information if it's an invalid deduction. Now, if this process is managed poorly, the result can be a very negative experience for your customers. You can see some erosion at your bottom line. You could even see an increase in days sales outstanding, let alone deductions days outstanding. And you could also see a reduction in the productivity of your employees if this is poorly managed. If there's no deduction or short pay, then the process looks slightly different. Now the analyst has to take action to match the payment with remittance information, open and apply that to any open invoice, or they might need to follow up the customer if the remittance is missing, and then they still need to reconcile the payments and the remittance information, match it to the open invoices, and then close out the invoice in the ERP. So when the cash is applied in an inefficient manner, the results could be things like the invoices remaining open in the system longer than necessary, so that delays your cash management. Your collection calls to your customers might be made despite the fact that a payment had been received. It just the cash had not been applied yet. So maybe it's that it wasn't processed or made available to the organization. Orders could be put on hold unnecessarily because of a credit limit that was reached, but then wasn't released because payment had been made and it just wasn't processed. So what we'd like to do is have a poll question, and we want to understand a little bit more clearly for our attendees on the call today. How are you currently managing deductions and cash application at your company? So Patricia's going to launch the poll, and then you'll be able to answer the question. So are you using Excel and spreadsheets? Perhaps you're using an on-premise solution. Is it that you have a cloud solution that has some kind of capabilities like robotic process automation? Or maybe you are leveraging an artificially intelligent empowered cloud solution. So again, if you could answer the poll question, how are you currently managing deductions and cash application at your company? So while those poll results are coming in, I'm just going to go to the next section, and when the results come up, either if I see them or then Patricia can share them with us. So, why are these manual processes, if you're people that are still doing them, why is that going to be even more challenging with this new economy? So I think that every crisis leads to some form of lasting change. And as such, we really need to take the lessons learned from the crises that we're in and incorporate that to reach a better position than we had, in this case, let's say, before the pandemic. And one of the things that we felt is the impact that technology has had in helping in the transition from office work to work at home, and how much of the work that was manual prior to the shift is no longer viable as our situation continues to evolve and even the work from home remains an option. Okay, so I think we'll be closing out the poll right about now. And then maybe it's because of my screen share, but I don't see the results. So Patricia, if you could walk us through those, that would be great.
Absolutely. Let me share those with you. Yes. So the responses we received were 17% are using Excel and spreadsheets. 67% are using an on-premise solution. 17% are leveraging an AI-powered cloud solution, and we have no response for we have a cloud solution with RPA capabilities.
Okay, sounds good. 67 on-prem. That is actually, I'm kind of surprised by that statistic. I think that on-premise solutions just we see a lot more organizations moving to the cloud because of the flexibility and the scalability of that kind of thing. So, okay, getting back to what a manual cash application process looks like. There's a lot of points throughout that process, where it's really going to take time because the work is so clerical in nature. The payment files received from the bank, so the AR team has to collect the remittance. Comes in separately. It comes from various sources in a variety of formats, and then they need to reconcile that remittance with the payment information that's coming from the bank. And once those are read and matched, any deductions must be coded, and a file has to be created that links both the payment and the remittance together, and then it's going to be able to be posted into the ERP system to close out the open invoices, and finally the cash is posted in the ERP system. So this manual process it not only increases costs, it also has that negative impact on downstream processes such as collections and deductions. When deductions are managed in such a manual way, an analyst has to really collect all that backup documentation from the customers and any kind of third-party portals. They have to collaborate with their internal teams to check on the validity of the deduction, compare it to, let's say, pricing sheets or trade promotions or other offered discount programs, and then determining if it's valid or if it's invalid. Then they either resolve their deduction or, write off the cost depending on the situation. And finally, the analyst has to really inform the various key stakeholders, and sometimes this process kind of falls to the side. The collections team may be the last to know that a payment's been made or a deduction was taken, and if further action needs to be, taken for the account or an update of the status of the account, right? So this kind of manual approach really means there's not a lot of visibility into the deduction resolution time. How long is it really taking to close out an invalid deduction? And a lot of time is wasted in researching deductions that are actually valid. I think it's something like 90% of deductions are valid, and then there's only about 10% that are invalid, and yet you have to go through all your deductions to determine which is which. And all of that's going to really result in higher days deductions outstanding, in poor customer experience, and really delayed cash application. So this manual approach to cash application and deductions management, it's really going to be less and less acceptable in this new economy, because I think what has really happened is the gaps in the processes have really been highlighted, and these manual tasks are no longer covering the needs of organizations. And so it's really important to be leveraging technology, because that can really increase your efficiency, your productivity, and your effectiveness. And this is especially important because we've heard this from a lot of our customers. The role of accounts receivable has really evolved, and now it's becoming a much more strategic function in the office of the CFO. And as more and more highly visible processes are going to be being spotlighted in the aftermath of something like this threatened economy that we're currently experiencing. You know, I think accounts receivable is really going to have to look to additional ways to provide the value and become a much more important and strategic role as a customer-facing role. You know, the ability to build stronger relationships and increase the satisfaction of your customers across your portfolio is really going to be of paramount importance. And then to be able to align all of that to the company's revenue and generation objectives is going to be very important for AR teams. I think that we're going to see that CFOs will want to continue being informed and into the high visibility they're getting on a day-to-day basis for accounts receivable tasks, and really continuing to be that important strategic role for managing working capital and for managing the cash flow for an organization. So for this next section, I'm going to outline what I consider and what we've seen, we put together as a result of our work with various customers, the 6-step action plan to improve deductions and cash application processes. So what are the 6 steps? They are to document extensively, act and respond efficiently, be proactive, collaborate seamlessly, ensure 360-degree visibility, and then lastly, it's to leverage automation. So first, effective documentation is key for successful deductions management and cash application. So what do you need to document? What are the kinds of things you have to document? It could be things like claims that are raised by the customer, backup documents related to claims and deductions, customer correspondence and other communications, invoice and remittance details, deduction policies, rules, reason codes, all of that information so you can standardize those processes. And then why is it important? Why should you really document? I think you need to do it so that you can maintain a single source of truth. You want to document because you can build reports with that data and information and be able to do things like periodic checks and executive reviews. It's also going to help you to keep a record in the event of a future conflict with a customer, because now you have all of the information you need to understand the status and how you got to where you are. And it also allows you to maintain an audit trail. So for compliance reasons, documenting is always a great thing. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you that digital tools can really make the labor-intensive process of documentation that much easier. Rebecca, do you have any comments in terms of things to document that you've also keep records of, or what other reasons why you think it's an important aspect?
Well, one thing that is really helpful is if you're documenting in the cloud, it's just going to be so much easier to find things. Whereas if you're trying to manually store it, everyone has their own method and way of storing this type of information, and using it in the cloud in a software, it just really organizes it very well for you for going backwards.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that actually brings us to our next point, which is collaborate seamlessly. So when you have all of your documentation in one place in the cloud, then everyone's looking at the same data, right? And it's the same information that's being shared. I think that if you have poor team collaboration, you're going to see a lot of delays in the actions. You're going to really have a poor customer experience, and your productivity is going to really be reduced because a lot of time is spent trying to figure out where the document is, who has it, what's the latest information, is everyone sharing it? So what should you keep in mind in terms of collaboration? You want to make sure that as an organization, everyone understands that accounts receivable is a collective responsibility, that there's pieces of it that go across the entire organization. That also that AR teams are interdependent. And when I say that, I mean, for example, I alluded to this earlier, right? So when a credit limit of a customer doesn't get released because a payment's not being applied, and so that collaboration, that communication is so important, because action that the collections team take might change depending on if they learn that a payment's been made, of course. And same thing, cash may not be applied when a deduction is still outstanding. So the deductions team and the action they're taking, the research they're doing is very dependent upon having that cash and those open invoices closed out. Why is collaboration important? I think, you know, when we have teams that work in silos, that really makes it difficult to be on the same page, especially when you're talking to your customer and understanding what the status of the account is. If you don't have real-time collaboration, you know, I think then you run into issues where there might be assumptions that are made, and that can lead to bad decisions. And then especially when we're looking at us, typically even in this remote environment that we're in, I think collaboration is really key to maintaining that full transparency. Understand that account status and where it is in terms of, you know, with other stakeholders. And of course, there's lots of digital tools that provide a single platform for to make more efficiency, to build better efficiency, and for teams to be able to collaborate. And Rebecca, you have any thoughts on this particular collaboration or insights here?
Well, I just, you know, I have to agree that it impacts a number of departments. You know, it's not just the collection side of it, but like you say, failure to post cash in a timely manner could put customers on credit hold, and then you would have people that are doing collection efforts in vain because it's already been received. So it is a real key thing.
Yeah, and we've definitely hear that from customers that that's the case. And you know, if we've got to make customer experience such an important part, and really kind of look towards improving customer satisfaction, that's taking an organization to the next level. So thirdly, you know, for these 6 steps, the third step, we say you must act and respond efficiently. So we live in a world that's real time. You think about any kind of technology, even in our personal lives, let alone in our work lives, everything's so instantaneous. And so being able to respond and to provide service in order to thrive is super important. So what should you keep in mind when looking at the efficiency? So again, I think customer experience, it's going to become much more of a priority for business to business. And buyers want that same experience that they get when you think about the business to consumer world, where it is instantaneous access, it is customized data that's being sent, it's very targeted information, and people are able to do things so quickly from a personal perspective and from a consumer perspective. And we're definitely seeing that trend come over to the B2B side. What we're also seeing is that AR teams need to stay on top of what's happening in the world. So especially with what's going on with the pandemic, you know, we're actually talking now about the rise of cases again, and the closures of some, you know, cities, some countries even, putting more orders for stay-at-home in place. And how is that affecting the market? How does that affect particular industries? And so making sure we're being alerted to what's happening and acting accordingly and staying on top of that information and seeing how it affects our customers. And then I think this is the last key point here on what you should keep in mind, is that being able to respond in real time, it's not just good to have, it's going to become a must-have. It's going to be something that you really are going to have to do, is to stay real time. So how should you act and respond? You want to keep an eye on your customers' behavior. Again, some things like the market trends, be able to get alerts to changes that are happening, mergers or acquisitions, bankruptcies and reports, you know, identify and call out patterns or customer behavior that's changed from the way it had been previously. Maybe there's, you know, more frequent automated write-offs that are happening. And then you also want to respond to queries and claims more quickly. You want to do that sooner rather than later, so that you can make sure that, you know, when there's our requests that are coming in, that you're actually taking care of them as quickly as possible. And I think the third one is something that is a best practice, but I think that the COVID crisis has really kind of brought it to become much more of a focus, and that's to communicate frequently with your buyers. But I also think frequent communication across the board is super important. And of course, we know that technology can really facilitate timely action, and it goes a long way to help keep our customers happy. So Rebecca, you've got comments or thoughts about acting and responding efficiently?
Well, I think that COVID has sort of changed the landscape for a lot of people, including us. We are having a lot more direct sales to customers, you know, and the transactional volume is just astronomical. And so having technology on board with that really helps us, because it, like I said, it's amazing how much the transactional volume has increased this year. And we
Wow.
know it's because people are at home, and so we're doing a lot more sales direct to customers. And the retailers, every day is a changing environment. So staying in touch with your buyers and your sales staff, and seeing where people are, is very critical this year. So it's just something that technology really helps us.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing that from a lot of customers. And again, I think to your point, the retail industry, especially, we've seen some tremendous upswings and downswings, depending on what you're selling and where you're selling to, and what geography as well. Okay, so then the fourth step is you want to ensure 360-degree visibility, because higher visibility and control, it's one of the top priorities for senior management today. So I think visibility and transparency are definitely two key things. So what do executives need visibility into in specific? I think they're going to want to start looking at things like team performance. How are analysts doing on a day-to-day basis? And what is the business value that they are creating with the work that they're doing? You also want to be looking at the customer experience and the behavior. So putting in metrics and managing things like average dispute resolution time, or how much time is it taking to close invoices, or maybe it's tracking the number of automated write-offs, and having the visibility into what's happening within your departments and with your customers. And then I think it's also looking at things like value metrics. So your typical old-fashioned things like metrics we've been measuring for years and years, the days deductions outstanding, the days sales outstanding, the bad debt written off. I think you need to make sure you're tracking and managing those as well, and looking into that so that executives will understand how the AR team is performing. And what could you do to support this objective, this 360-degree visibility? It goes back to one of our first points, document effectively. So making sure that you are documenting all the different processes, standardizing the way that you are executing on those, making sure that you have reporting in place. And in order to have reporting, you're going to have to define your KPIs clearly. So you want to communicate the reason behind, understand why you're selecting a certain KPI. Are you managing and measuring the things that are actually directly related to your goals as an organization? And then you also want to be able to build custom reports based on the request from your leadership. So if your executives are asking for certain information and data points, have that information available to be able to create what it is they want to see the visibility into. So I think that analytics and reporting, it's really emerging as one of the #1 priorities for the office of the CFO. And again, Rebecca, thoughts on visibility and what executives might be looking for?
I think the reporting is a very key thing, because, like I say, the changing metrics, and just being able to look at what's out there and where we're headed, having technology compile this information and give us this type of information is very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. We hear about that at the office of the CFO is really seeing the value, especially from the AR teams. So the fifth step is to be proactive. In order to cash, if you really want to deliver real business value, the AR leaders are going to need to shift from a reactive to a more proactive approach. So what does being proactive mean? It means being on the lookout for a claim and deduction, not waiting until it comes in, but knowing that typical behavior, that it's something that's going to happen, or understanding where the promotions are so you know that you might see more of those types of deductions. Secondly, if the collection team mentions to you that the customer said they would take a short pay, don't wait for the actual claim to begin that research for that deduction. And then, close invoices as soon as you find a match for your remittance. So it's about the accuracy and the speed with which you close out open invoices. And then why do you need to be proactive? So being proactive, it increases your productivity. So you can really do more with less. We hear about this too, that technology enables you to scale and to continue to have, like, even the shift in volume that you talked about, Rebecca, and being able to handle that because there's technology in place that can scale as you see fluctuations, as things increase, and that can help you if you can remain proactive and stay ahead of those curves that come up. Secondly, to be proactive, you really want to ensure better customer experience. So the more quickly you react to your customers, the more quickly you respond to disputes, deductions, needs, and so forth, then the better that relationship is, and the more deeply you're going to build that relationship. And then you also have to look at how being proactive can impact your bottom line. So when money hits your bank faster, then your working capital is going to be improved. And that's going to allow you also as an organization to be able to make expansion and growth plans and to continue to be profitable. So that's where we can look at AI-powered solutions and predictive analytics that can really help allow AR teams to be more proactive. And Rebecca, thoughts on being proactive?
Well, I think this year being proactive is more important than ever. For one reason, if you have a compliance failure that you're going to be charged for, if you know about that prior to the deduction, you can immediately begin to make corrections. Or if it's an invalid, say like a late shipment, you can immediately dispute it. A lot of the retailers have extended terms this year. And so if you wait until you get payment, you may be 60, 90 days down the road from when that occurred. And so you stand a chance of having a lot more deductions for the same thing if it's not corrected. So being proactive and preventative corrections is very key this year.
And then let's talk about the sixth step, leverage automation. I think you might be hearing this more and more. Digital, it's not the future, it is the present. And your order to cash department needs technology today. And I think it's become even more apparent with the onset of the work from home and remote environments and the changes that has had to take place as a result. So what value does automation create? It makes it easier and faster to process claims and to close out open invoices. It can eliminate the manual labor, and that's really going to allow teams to focus on more strategic and value add tasks and the more strategic type of work. And then technology, it's the key to increase productivity and efficiency, and it's really going to help improve both your internal team experience and the external experience of your customers as well. So how should you go about automation project planning? So first, you want to identify the value that you can create with your technology. You're going to find a vendor that understands your desired to-be state, where you want to be, and offer solutions that can help get you there. I also think it's really important to benchmark. In order to understand where you are and where you want to be, benchmark, understand what your processes are delivering now, where your goals are, what you want them to deliver with an implementation in the future. And then I also think it's really important to benchmark against industry. So go and look out to see what others, your peers, your competitors are doing in terms of benchmarking and what kind of metrics and measurements they're tracking against. And although it's not the only factor to improve performance, automation is definitely an important one in order to do so. So I think, Rebecca, you're going to be going into your case study in a bit, so I think you'll be talking about leveraging automation for a few slides. So I'm just going to make a few more points here. I think it's important to note that automation isn't the answer to everything. You actually need something like a digital transformation, and that automation is just one part of that digital transformation process. You don't just start up a process to get payments electronically, for example, without considering the impact to not only the processes, but what is the impact to the people. If you put automation in place, the people that are doing the work, it's going to change the way they work, and it's going to change their everyday functioning. So you have to take that into account when putting automation in place. So with the automation piece, you focus on process metric improvements, the things that are on the left side of this chart. cost optimization, through positive ROI. You take into account considerations such as data security and integrity, and how to build seamless collaboration between internal teams and between you and your customers. But when you consider it in light of as a digital transformation project, it's a much more holistic approach. You're much more highly focused on the end customer experience and working to increase like employee engagement and take into account how people are impacted and included in that process. So a digital transformation, it promotes a culture of continuous improvement. You know, you're constantly going to be looking for feedback and to take data and have it be incorporated back into your process so that you can learn and grow and continue to make that process better over time. It's the ability to work together. This idea that we always talk about, this humans plus machines or humans plus technology, you know, working together, not against each other. That's really going to offer this better quality of life. You know, the latest technologies such as artificial intelligence and virtual assistants can really radically transform how accounts receivable will evolve so that teams can focus on those value-added projects and that higher impact type of work rather than just completing transactional tasks. So this brings us to our second poll question of the day. Patricia, we're going to launch that poll. And the question is, do you currently have a digital transformation strategy for your order to cash? So is it yes, is it no, is it thinking about it? So I think you can kind of pick between one of those. I think it's going to be a pretty quick poll. So again, if you currently have a digital transformation strategy. And then while that poll question is going to come up, when we come back from the poll question, I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca, and she is going to share Komar's story of digital transformation for cash application and deductions. And I'm assuming the poll is going to be closing shortly.
And here you are. I've closed the poll, and here are the results. So in terms of, do you currently have a digital transformation strategy for your order to cash? We have 50% that are thinking about it, 33% are at no, and 17% are at yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Patricia. And now, Rebecca, on to you.
Okay. So basically, starting out here, cash application at Komar, before we automated, was a very, very manual type of situation. We would log into each of our banks and actually print out the remittances. And so then we would take these remittances to each individual claim rep to code the deductions, because they were familiar with what certain codes for our customers represented. Then the claims department would make copies of these checks so they would have as a backup to know what, you know, the information they needed to dispute or to clear it. And then the cash office would do manual entry of every check into our main system. Our cash application module was very very limited in what we could do. And if there were any type of allowances or deductions that could be grouped, say, you know, discounts or return allowances, that sort of thing, we would have to manually add all those up to group them. And so that was a very time-consuming process. It basically took, we had an entire office, and it took them all day to manually enter the cash. And so it was painful. So after automation, we HighRadius is our, you know, provider of cash application software. And so what they do is they go into our bank and they pull the remittances and they put them in an 820 format. So they electronically pull this information over for us to review. We also went through extensive mapping with HighRadius on the setup so that they would have a list of tables. So each customer's codes would then be coded into the appropriate Komar code. And that is an automatic thing. If a customer sends a physical check, then HighRadius is able to read the check and to put it in electronic format for us. They also match up email remittances to wire transactions. So basically, at the end of the day, each bank account, the transactions for that day are pulled into an electronic format into our software, so that all that we have to do is to review and then to post them. They also, we can tell them if a customer is granted a discount or an allowance, they can group all of the deductions into one, so that greatly reduces time. And then they can also determine if it's taken, if the customer is taking more than they're allowed, then it can put it into two separate categories so that we know that this percentage is valid and can just be cleared, and we don't have to work through all of those claims. And there can be hundreds of claims that are grouped, and it's very helpful for us. Okay, deduction management. Prior to automation, we didn't have any method of recording claims until they were actually deducted off of a check. So although some of our customers would notify us by mail or by email or on their website, we would have to manually go in and check the sites to see if there was any deductions, to know about anything prior to a deduction off the check. Each claim was coded by the claim rep. And so if you have someone absent for the day, they may not be as familiar as the rep is with the account, and things could get miscoded, and then have to be worked through and adjusted. Manual disputes, everything was manual. We did some disputes by email, a lot of it by snail mail, and some claims would actually even time out before we could get around to disputing them. It was very difficult to keep the entire team alerted to what problems, what failures we had, and to get correction made, because by the time that we notified the specific departments, the problem had become greater. So it was very difficult managing manually. Now with HighRadius, they go in and they sweep our customer websites for claim activity. And every day they will pull in from the websites, and they will create what they call a pre-notification. And it actually builds a transaction just like a claim deduction, but it's a pre-notification. And so when the actual claim comes in, it will match up and it will merge that pre-notification in with the claim. So any work that you do, any notes, any coding, all of that will automatically merge into the actual claim when it's deducted off a check, including they will save the claim copies and any supporting documentation out there in the pre-notification. So we know, several days ahead, and we can work through these claims and we can make a difference in correcting the problems. They also, with the automatic coding of the claims, it's much more accurate, because again, if you have a change in employees or you have an employee that's out, it's all automated, and so it's a much stronger chance that things are going to be coded appropriately. We can also file disputes through our software. It allows us to build correspondence, and you just would set up templates. So say, for instance, a shortage, you tell it what you would put in your correspondence, and then it will pull from your claim information, for instance, your purchase order, the amount of the claim, just anything that is needed to automatically dispute that for you. Category grouping makes it much easier to build reports, to notify different departments. You can have, you know, we basically have major categories of like operational type charges, supplier type charges, and then of course allowances, markdown and advertising, that sort of thing. So you can just very easily group into those categories and provide reporting. And again, grouping the claims at cash application for, say, field destroying discounts, that just reduces the number of claims that you have to work with, and so we are much more efficient. HighRadius gave us an opportunity to automate cash application, to automate our claim deductions, and to automate trade promotion. So we like to track what allowances that we're giving out, and this allowed for us to keep track of that. Just, we looked at some softwares. We tried to decide what would be the best solution, and we did feel like that HighRadius was the best solution. I will say that we've had HighRadius for about 5 or 6 years now, and I don't regret us going to HighRadius, for the simple reason is they have grown with us. As the climate has changed, they will go in and immediately work through issues. Our customers are constantly changing like mapping. They're changing the way that you pull things off their website. Their websites change. Our business has changed over the years. This year especially, we've seen a huge increase in e-com, and we've added divisions, and HighRadius has just been very versatile to help us stay up and running and to fix any problems that we came from a new type of transaction. We had a very large increase in productivity. We were able to combine a number of departments where it used to take an entire department to apply cash. I now have one person applying cash, and it doesn't even take a full day. And going to electronic disputes versus manual, we've been able to reduce our staff in the claims department, and we are just more effective. We don't end up writing off as much because things don't tend to get missed because we have a lot of help, and we have much greater visibility for AR reporting and claims. So where are we headed right now? We're working with HighRadius concerning the cash application and its ability to manage the posting of cash for the direct shipments, because things are much different in the way that this information is being provided to us from the banks. And so they're working with us to modify our cash application mapping, and that's going to be a real big help. Some of our remittances can have up to 7,000 individual lines, and again, very low dollar but huge transactional volume due to individual sales to customers instead of, you know, the major. We still continue to sell the major retailers, but you might have a payment that would include both types of transactions. And so HighRadius is working with us to get this mapped so that we're going to be able to do this much more effectively. The other thing that we're working with HighRadius on right now is we did purchase their proof of delivery module. And what that does is it goes out and it pulls proof of delivery from carrier websites. But we have come to the realization that we have thousands of carriers. And so we are asking HighRadius to map to our bill of lading drives instead, because that's going to be many disputes can be made just using the bill of lading, and the POD is not required. So they're working with us to begin mapping to all of our bill of lading drives. And that's going to be a big improvement for us also.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. I think just sharing some of those results, and it's exciting to see where you're headed, and I think it's a true partnership that we have with your organization, and so it's really a delight to see that. So I just want to summarize real quick as we close up. We're coming on towards the end of the webinar here. Talk again, just the 6-step action plan for your digital transformation. What does that look like? You want to document extensively. So effective documentation, we really think, is the key for successful deductions management and cash application. You want to make sure that you are collaborating seamlessly. You know, that poor cross-team collaboration can result in delayed action, bad customer experience, and reduced productivity. So you want all those things to go the other way. You want to act and respond efficiently. We definitely live in a world where it's about real time, it's about instantaneous, it's about service, and that's going to be the key to really driving best in class. You want to ensure that 360 degrees of visibility, so that higher visibility and control, it's going to be one of those top priorities I think that senior management is going to continue to look for in our current economic environment and moving towards the future. Be proactive. In order to deliver, you want real business value, and your AR leaders are going to need to shift from a reactive to a more proactive approach. And we heard Rebecca talk quite a bit about that, being able to be more proactive in her AR processes. And then leverage automation. You know, we can talk about the future is digital. No, the future is here, if that's the case, because digital is becoming the norm. And your order to cash departments really need technology today. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about HighRadius, and then I'll ask Patricia, see if we have any questions that have come in from our audience. So for those of you who are not familiar with HighRadius, we are a fintech enterprise software as a service company. We leverage artificial intelligence-based autonomous systems that help companies automate their accounts receivable and their treasury processes. We are the only provider of the integrated receivables platform. So it's a platform that integrates and collaborates across the entire order to cash cycle, and that includes credit, electronic invoice presentment and payment, cash application, deductions, and collections. And the HighRadius Treasury Management Platform helps teams conduct accurate cash forecasting using artificial intelligence. We have touchless cash management and bank reconciliation. Now, HighRadius, as a company, we've been vetted by industry leaders. We have strategic partnerships with and investments from the likes of Citi, from PNC, and from Bank of America. Our AI-enabled autonomous systems really help financial analysts to break free from clunky enterprise software, and that's going to allow you and your teams to make better decisions, and it's going to really improve the quality of your work life by automating a lot of that clerical administrative type task. Today, in 2020 and 2021, we're really focusing on .1 performance. So that's what we call being 1 in 1,000. And we work with our clients because we want to help them become a 1 in 1,000 finance department and an AR department. So we recently launched a new product called Radius One AR Suite, and it includes a set of AI-powered solutions that are designed to support AR processes for mid-sized companies. And it's going to help them automate labor-intensive processes, maximize working capital, and enable faster cash conversion. So we as an organization, we've done more than 1,000 finance transformation projects. Those have been spread across 45 different countries, across 6 continents. And we've also had years of research and development that we've put into our products, and it brings with us a ton of experience from working closely with Rebecca and organizations like Komar, who are industry leaders that have been implementing our solutions. We have dozens of the largest companies in the world that use our solutions, and I think what's very important to show is that we also represent a wide range of industries and that we work with any ERP system or ERP agnostic, and that we also do work with a large number of mid-sized businesses when we help them grow their teams, keep them lean and efficient as they grow. So we're headquartered in Houston. That's actually where I reside as well. And we have a global footprint, offices in North America, Europe, and South Central Asia. We just opened our office in Frankfurt, Germany. And then before you go, I've got our final poll question we're going to launch. Would you like to know more about HighRadius solutions? Perhaps some of the solutions that Rebecca talked about today and some of the wonderful results that they got as an organization. So you can answer yes, you'd like to be connected to an expert, maybe watch a demo, maybe you just like some resource materials, we can send that along, maybe sometime in the future, or maybe not at this time. So if you could just let us know the answer to that. And then I think while that poll is going on, Patricia, I'm going to go to you and ask if we've had any questions that have come in from the audience.
And we have had some questions come in. The first is a multi-part question. It's asking about how many customers is HighRadius managing for Komar currently? And are all of those customers handled by HighRadius? And then what about those customers who do not have portals? How are they managed?
So this sounds like a Rebecca question.
Okay. I think I'm understanding the question. HighRadius manages all of our customers. If we have mapping for all of our major customers, and then the way that it's set up is that all of your smaller customers, say your specialty stores, then you would have mapping specific to that type of customer. As far as deductions, most deductions come from major customers. We don't get that many deductions from specialty stores and small stores. They're primarily returns or shortages. And we have an address for remittance information. So when we set up with our customers, we tell them that they can email into that email. It's remittance HRC, and so it's what HighRadius does is it pulls all this email and it stores it for us so that we can go back and search by customer. We can get very specific and find that information. The other thing that I really didn't talk about in the seminar was that we were manually storing mountains of paperwork. We had probably 50 filing cabinets where we stored check copies and claim correspondence. So now everything is in the cloud, and we can go back and historically pull any information out of HighRadius, and it's all electronic. So I hope that answered the question.
Would you say you have hundreds or thousands of customers, Rebecca, just to give an idea?
I would say hundreds, maybe I wouldn't say we have thousands, but I would say we probably have at least 1,000. I really don't know the accurate count. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But just to give us a ballpark, because that was part of the question, how many customers, just to give an idea. Okay. Patricia, any other questions that came in?
Thank you. Yes, we do. Since there are multiple people working on a dispute at times, how do we ensure that members across multiple teams have equal visibility into all disputes while we're leveraging technology?
So I can take this question. So obviously, I think having a system in place that's going to be able to track and record all those disputes that are taken, I think it's important to be able to see disputes that have been taken in the past. So to have that history, the historic record, you know, having multiple people work, you want to make sure you have a system that's allowing that collaboration and the visibility so that, you know, different teams can understand what's going on and understand the status of a claim or a deduction or the dispute at any given time. I think it's also important to see if there's patterns. You know, let's say, for example, it's the same amount. Let's say that you have a customer who's always taking a deduction at 99 cents because they know your threshold's $1, let's say, for example. And you start to see patterns that they're going in just under your auto write-off limit and taking advantage of that kind of thing. So a system can also help you to see disputes like that and a pattern that may be emerging from your customers. I think also, you can also use technology to kind of deep dive into the disputes, look at the details, and understand, you know, where it can be applied for, and why that dispute was taken, whether it is valid or invalid. The artificial intelligence actually has a feature that will predict the validity of your deduction or dispute, and then allow you to kind of really just focus on the invalid ones, and then close out the ones that are valid. And I think also having, you said it was talking about multiple people. So again, I think going back to the collaboration and having that visibility, and then, you know, being able to reach out to the customer appropriately because you understand the status of the account. You know that if there's others that have reached out within your department or organization, and why that's important to make sure that you're having good customer experience and good customer service.
Thank you, Elaine. And with 2 minutes to spare to the webinar end, we have a question to Rebecca. How easy was it to manage changes across cash application and deduction teams after incorporating HighRadius solutions like Komar?
Okay. Well, it was a very intense setup, because you have to walk through the mapping of all the customers. So it was, it took a lot of time, but the end result was that we have much more accurate reporting. We have much more timely reporting and the ability to drive to a root cause, to see where the problems are, and to make positive impact. And it just made it easier and quicker to file disputes. So all in all, people had to learn a new way to work, you know, but they were, their time was being much more effective after automation.
Right, and I think you're touching on something super important, Rebecca, and that's making sure that you're involving your users in the training and the educating, and to understand how it's going to impact. That gets back to the whole idea of, you can't just automate in a bubble. You really have to look at how people are going to change, how their day-to-day operations and tasks are going to change as a result of putting technology in place.
Agreed.
Thank you. And we are unfortunately out of time today. I do want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We will be sending out a link to the on-demand version of this webinar as soon as the file is available. And if you have any further questions about the material covered today, please contact Elaine at Elaine Nowak, elaine.nowak @HighRadius.com. Thank you all and have a great day.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye all. Thank you.